across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is Jonathan Vernon Smith.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Jonathan Davies is an economist and wealth manager in Hertfordshire. He's also a Scot. Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Nothing gets past me, you'll see. So what do you think? I mean, how would you like the Scots to vote up in Scotland?
Well, I say a few weeks ago, until a few weeks ago, my standard answer was, well, as an economist and wealth manager and as a Scot, I couldn't care less. Because I really didn't think that there were particularly strong reasons for or against. In other words, it could go either way. However, it dawned on me in the last few weeks that, you know what, there are small countries around the world who are performing fantastically well, and I think the reason for that is because the government is close to the governed, and the closer a government is to the governed, the easier it is for the governed to control the government. When you think about it, Westminster is several hundred miles away from Scotland. Brussels is potentially 1,000 or 2,000 miles away from some countries. Washington is 3,000 miles away from the West Coast. In other words, all these areas are largely dysfunctional. If I had a choice, if I had a vote, I would vote for independence, not because of any particular economic or political ideal, but because I think in the long term it will be better for the Scots because they'll have their government on their doorstep. And if the government step out of line, they'll be easier to get rid of.
But we hear... And it's very difficult, actually, and you, as an economist, may know the answer, where many of us don't. We hear on one side that the English are subsidising the Scots, and then on the other hand, we hear that Scotland produces far more tax per head than any other part of the UK, so therefore puts far more money into the UK than anybody else does. I mean, what is it? You're an economist, you must know.
On the one hand, it is a fact that there is a balance of payments which comes from London up to Edinburgh. That's no doubt. On the other hand, with regards to the amount of tax that's raised in Scotland, the question is who owns the oil? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it's been decided. It's part of the negotiations that the professor was talking about 20 minutes ago. If Scotland owns the oil, then you're absolutely correct. Then it's hard to say what the balance is. However, it's far bigger than that. It's not about the short-term monetary issues. It's not about the bedroom tax. Even it's not about that Scotland is a socialist country, because, of course, it generally votes in far more socialist politicians than non-socialist politicians. But it's more about whether or not the Scots can control their government, as I was saying earlier, or not. And as I say, obviously, Scotland cannot control Westminster, even though, of course, it does help Labour get in because it produces so many Labour politicians. We've heard that. That's a fact. And certainly, by the way, you keep talking about England. It's England, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Yes, of course it is.
Actually.
Of course it is.
Yeah, well, it's an important point. It is a fact. I would suggest that if independence comes, then it's more likely that Labour will never again rule in Westminster. So that's an interesting point.
It certainly is. Jonathan, we must leave it there because we're out of time, but thank you very much indeed for your time.
Travel news for beds, cards and bucks.
BBC Three Counties Radio.